Why is everyone fleeing paradise? Imagine for a second that you live in what is effectively the most beautiful country on Earth. We are talking about a place that looks like a movie set every single day, with snow-capped mountains, rolling green hills that go on forever, and beaches that look like they were pulled straight out of a travel magazine. It sounds like the absolute dream life, doesn't it? It sounds like the kind of place you would work your entire life just to retire to. But here is the twist that feels almost like a glitch in the economic matrix. If New Zealand is such a paradise, why are so many of its own people desperate to pack their bags and leave? We are seeing a mass exodus of young, talented, and ambitious people who are looking at this stunning landscape and deciding that they just cannot afford to stay there anymore. Today we are going to dig into why Kiwis are ditching the Shire for the concrete jungles across the ocean. We need to talk about housing bubbles that defy logic, a cost of living crisis that makes your wallet weep, and a phenomenon called the brain drain that is threatening the future of an entire nation. Before we jump into the numbers and the deeper economic story, I have a small favor to ask. If you enjoy videos where we connect the dots between global trends, real people, and your financial future, please go ahead and click that subscribe button right now. It really helps us keep these investigations coming and ensures you stay smarter than the headlines. To understand why this is happening, we first have to talk about geography, because New Zealand's biggest blessing is arguably its biggest economic curse. If you look at a map, the country is basically hanging out by itself at the bottom of the world. It is over 1,000 miles away from its nearest neighbor, Australia, and that is a whole lot of empty ocean. This isolation is fantastic if you want to avoid global conflicts or pandemics, but economically, it is tough. In the modern world, being connected matters more than anything. When you are that far away from global markets, shipping goods costs a fortune. You cannot just drive a truck of products to the next country over like you can in Europe or North America. Everything has to fly or float for days. Then you have to consider the sheer size of the market. The entire population of New Zealand is only about 5 million people. To put that into perspective, the whole country has fewer people than the city of Sydney or Singapore. Imagine trying to build world-class infrastructure, hospitals, roads, and tech sectors with a tax base the size of a single medium-sized city, but spread out over two massive mountainous islands. This creates a ceiling for businesses. If you start a company in New Zealand, you run out of local customers almost immediately. You cannot scale up easily because there just are not enough people to buy your products. This leads to what economists call low productivity. It is not that Kiwis are lazy, they are some of the hardest workers on the planet, but the economy does not generate as much cash per hour worked as places like the US or Australia. Now we have to address the elephant in the room, or rather, the million-dollar shack in the room. The housing market in New Zealand is arguably one of the most expensive in the world. For a long time, the economy has been oddly obsessed with trading houses back and forth. Instead of investing heavily in the stock market, tech startups, or large-scale industry, many Kiwis pour their money into land. Residential construction and property services make up a massive chunk of GDP. The problem with this model is that houses do not actually produce anything. If you build a factory, you make goods to export. If you build a house, it just sits there. This obsession has driven prices sky high. In cities like Auckland, buying a humble starter home basically requires you to be wealthy. We are seeing house price to income ratios that make places like New York City and London look reasonable. It is shocking when you compare the average wage to the average mortgage. So imagine you are a young professional. You have just graduated from university, worked hard your whole life, and you are staring at a starter home that costs 12 times your annual salary. You do the math and realize you may never own a home in your own country. That is a crushing realization to have in paradise. This is where the big brother next door enters the chat. Australia is right across the ditch, and the relationship between the two countries is unique. They have an open border arrangement where citizens can hop on a plane, land in the other country, and start working without major visa headaches. This freedom is great, but it is a challenge for New Zealand's retention rates. Australia is incredibly resource-rich. They have massive mining operations, huge banking sectors, and a broader economy. The wages in Australia are significantly higher for the exact same job. We are talking about a 30 to 40% pay bump for nurses, teachers, construction workers, and engineers. And here is the kicker. The cost of living in many Australian cities is often comparable, or sometimes even cheaper when you factor in purchasing power. So let's go back to that young graduate. They are sitting in a damp flat in Auckland, paying high rent, earning a modest wage. Then they scroll through Instagram and see their friend who moved to Brisbane or Melbourne. That friend is earning more each year, paying less for groceries, and just bought a house with a pool. At that point, it is not even a difficult choice. It is simple math. You move to Australia, you upgrade your life. You get the sun, the money, and the future you were promised but could not find at home. This migration is not just a trickle anymore, it is a flood. There are hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders living in Australia right now. That is a significant percentage of the entire Kiwi population. Imagine if 10% of the US population suddenly moved to Canada because the pay was better. The panic in Washington would be unreal, and that is similar to what policymakers in Wellington are facing. It is mostly the young and the skilled who are leaving. New Zealand pays to educate them, supports their healthcare as kids, and then right when they become productive adults who pay taxes, they vanish to Australia to pay taxes there instead. New Zealand is essentially subsidizing Australia's workforce. But it gets even more interesting because there is a backdoor phenomenon happening too. New Zealand is known for being relatively friendly to immigration. It is a great place to move if you want a safe, beautiful country to raise a family. So lots of skilled immigrants move there from Asia, Europe, and the Americas. They settle down, work hard, and eventually get residency and citizenship. But once they get that powerful New Zealand passport, the door to Australia unlocks for them too. Data shows a clear trend of people moving to New Zealand, becoming citizens, and then using that status to move to Australia. New Zealand becomes a stepping stone, a waiting room for the Australian dream. It is a tough cycle for the government, who are trying to plug workforce gaps, only to see those gaps reopen across the Tasman Sea. Now, I do not want to paint a picture of total doom, because New Zealand is still an incredible place. The government knows this is happening and is trying to pivot. Leaders are working to boost the tech sector, improve productivity, and address the housing crisis, although progress is slow. The country still relies heavily on selling premium food like dairy, meat, and wine to the world. They are world-class at grass-fed farming. But you cannot build a high-wage modern economy solely on milk powder and tourism. Diversification is critical, and they need to convince their own people that staying is worth the financial trade-off. The quality of life in New Zealand is different. It is slower. It is safer. For some people, the ability to surf after work, avoid massive traffic jams, and live in tight-knit communities is worth earning less money. But for the ambitious and the young, the pull of bigger markets is becoming hard to ignore. So here is the reality check. New Zealand is a case study in what happens when geography and economics collide. It proves that you can have stunning scenery, but if the rent is too high and the pay is too low, people will vote with their feet. It is also a warning sign for other small nations. In a globalized world, talent is mobile. If you do not reward your skilled workers properly, someone else who is richer and closer to the action will gladly take them. I really want to know what you think about this. Would you take a big pay cut to live in arguably the most beautiful country on Earth? Or is money the deciding factor for you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below because I read as many as I can. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to understand the world economy better with us, please smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Also, if you are looking to upgrade your own setup or check out the books and tools we use to research these topics, take a look at the links in the description below for some great recommendations. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.